Damn. So good. Are you interested in sex? Who knows? Hey everybody, it's Alexa. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to talk about my favorite books of the year. I started reading during quarantine and we're here, second year strong. Still into books. I read a lot more this year. I read 40 books in total. Out of the 40 books, here are the ones that I like the best. All of these books that I'm talking about are popular. Like, I don't pick up a book unless someone's told me it's good. That's just how I roll. If you just want someone to tell you one more time how good a popular book is, here I am. I just wanted to pop in and say that my camera liked to focus on my candle instead of my face for a lot of the portions of the video. So I'm sorry about that. I don't know. Hope it doesn't bother you too much. The first book I read was Sheets by Brenna Thummler. This is a graphic novel. I love a picture. If there's anything you need to know about me is that I love a picture. I read quite a bit of graphic novels this year. They're good, they're easy, they're fast. And if you think that reading graphic novels does not count as reading, you suck, because it does. It's fun. So Sheets is about a 13-year-old girl named Marjorie and a young ghost named Wendell. Marjorie and her family are recently dealing with the loss of Marjorie's mother, and she's also taking a bigger role in running their family's laundromat. So Wendell is a ghost that died young. He lives among the other ghosts in this secret world, and the human world is forbidden to him, but he's having trouble dealing with the fact that he's a ghost, and he misses the real world. So he escapes the secret ghost world and then joins back into the real world, and he stumbles upon Marjorie's family's laundrette. Little does he know that while he has his fun in the laundromat, he is actually sabotaging Marjorie's family laundromat. I really like this one, obviously. It's my favorite book. I need to not say that. The story is really cute, it's really wholesome, it's meant for younger audiences, which is why. So it's a bit juvenile, but it does go through some darker themes of like grief and loss and guilt and crippling loneliness. But since it's meant for kids, it sort of deals with these themes on a lighter note in a way that's sort of manageable for younger audiences. I think the art style is really good. I think the color palette's really lovely. It's this sort of blue and pink theme going on. If you are looking to pick up a graphic novel, I think this one's a good one. I think it's worth it, but I also have other graphic novel recommendations. Yeah. Love a picture. Next book I read is The Quick and Easy Guide to Disability by A.andrews. All different kinds of bods want to connect with other bods, but lots of them get left out of the conversation when it comes to sex. This is like an educational cartoon. It's like if you made a pamphlet fun, but it's also about disability sexuality, it's about myths surrounding disabled bodies, it's about how to communicate during sex, it's about how to have fulfilling sex in general. There's still quite a bit of stigma when it comes to discussing sex on its own or disability on its own, and of course at the intersection of those both, I think that stigma becomes amplified a little more. Sex is a normal thing to talk about, disability is a normal thing to talk about, and I feel like this book handles those two topics with great care. I feel like if you're interested, you should pick it up. As a quote in the back says, "Do you have a body? Are you interested in sex? This book is for you." So the next book I picked up is Today, Tonight, Tomorrow by Rachel Solomon. This is a young adult contemporary romance surrounding two academic rivals, Neil and Rowan. Rowan just lost the running to be the valedictorian. In order to sort of redeem herself, she wants one more win of the year, and so she decides that she needs to win Howl. So Howl is like a mix between a manhunt and a scavenger hunt, and it's played only among the seniors. Rowan is determined to beat Neil in this final game, but the gag is she has to work with Neil in order to win. What do you think will happen? Who knows? I love in enemies to lovers. I love when the male main character is shy and quiet and the girl is loud and rambunctious. I love when there's banter. I love a story about senior year and I love a story about graduating. There's just something about ending high school and stories revolving around ending high school that just really intrigue me. I think it's the whole idea of like closing a chapter. Maybe I just loved and leaving high school. I don't know. I thought it was fun. It was fast paced. It all takes place within like 24 hours-ish. Once you get to page like 60, then it really takes off and you're sort of just hooked for the rest of the ride. And I really enjoyed it. I will be reading the rest of Rachel Lynn Solomon's books. Next, I listened to an audiobook. It was the first audiobook I've ever read. It was Ace of Spades by Faridah, àbíké-íyímídé. So Ace of Spades is a young adult thriller book and it's described as Get Out meets Gossip Girl, and I agree with that, but let's also add on top that it's also about queer characters. It's sort of dark academia vibes, maybe? Hopefully I'm using that right. It's just set in a private school, like an old money private school sort of situation, and the book follows two characters, Chiamaka and Devin, who are the only black students at this private school. Someone called Aces is anonymously texting the entire school all of Chiamaka and Devin's secrets, and it seems like they're targeting only these two students for some reason. What could it be? And with every single secret that Aces reveals about them to the school, their livelihood and their futures become more and more threatened. This book got me fucked up. I definitely like Devon's side of the story more than Chiamaka's. It was hard for me to relate to Chiamaka. She like very much reeks of like rich girl problems, but like she still has some interesting inner dialogue when it comes to talking about like her ethnic background and growing up mixed race. It had a lot of social commentary regarding racism, classism, elitism, especially in the academic world. It also talked about homophobia quite a bit. Yeah, I found this book really interesting. It was pretty suspenseful. It kind of felt like a slow burn until the third quarter of the book, I think. I don't know, it doesn't get good until around just past the middle part of the book, but once you get there, I thought it was really worth it. I thought it was super crazy, like the reveals and things that happen, but again, I'm just hyping it up. I don't know. I don't want to hype it up too much so that your expectations get too high, but it was pretty good. It was pretty solid. This is the next book I read, Spanish Love Deception by Elena Armas. I actually picked this up from a free little library. Someone was giving this away. This was the book that actually kickstarted my obsession with the adult romance genre, and now anytime a book looks like this, like the little cartoon characters and like the simple font sort of thing, I pick it up. I pick it up or add it onto my TBR list. So Spanish Love Deception follows Catalina and Aaron. Catalina thinks that Aaron sucks because Aaron is always looking down on her and is always antagonizing her at work, and she just does not vibe with Aaron. She was like, this guy stinks. I don't like him. But Catalina needs a date to her sister's wedding back in her hometown in Spain, and she's talking to one of her co-workers about it, and Aaron overhears and he's like, hey, bestie, why don't you take me? And he's really adamant about it. And you're like, that's suspicious. This book follows Catalina and Aaron from the workplace all the way to the wedding in Spain. And what could happen? What could happen? What could happen? I thought this book was so good. Don't know how many times I'm gonna say it. This book was so good. Are there things wrong with this book? Maybe. Is the book too long? Maybe. Is the book too slow? Maybe. But I am in love with Aaron Blackford, and I'm so in love with him that it distracts me from any sort of flaw that this book has, and it distracts me from giving this book any sort of criticism because I love him so much. He is the white boy of the year. I think he's great. And I think what's really interesting about this is that this actually takes place in an engineering firm. So both Catalina and Aaron are engineers, and I'm an engineering student. So, I think that's why I'm also very biased to this book. But it does touch upon like a lot of fears and a lot of worries that women in engineering face when it comes to working in the corporate world. And I thought that all of the things that Catalina worries about relating to her job and all the things that bother her relating to her job, it feels very real, it feels very realistic. And that was just the cherry on top to this wonderful romance reading experience. Next up, we have Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is written by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It's a contemporary fiction. This follows Evelyn Hugo. In the present day, she is an old and retired woman living a quiet, reserved life, and she's ready to tell her story from her old Hollywood days. And she specifically picks this writer named Monique, and she's so confused as to why this giant Hollywood star would choose her to write her book, but nevertheless, she agrees to write the book. So this follows Evelyn Hugo as she discusses the entirety of her Hollywood career, including the 7 husbands that she married during her career and why she married them, and then we'll eventually uncover why Monique is connected to Evelyn. I think this book is exquisite. This book surrounds what it's like to be a woman and wanting power in a patriarchal society. It's about scandals, it's about sacrifices, how perception plays into that. It's about living in the public eye. It's about drive. It's about power. We stay hungry, we devour. As much as I love Evelyn, she is a very flawed human. She is a selfish human, but there is always a reason for the things that she does. I'm not saying that her actions are justifiable, but at the end of the day, like, she knows who she is and she knows what she did to get what she needed, and I respect her for it. I don't trust her.
I don't think she's a good person,
but I respect her. I think if there's one thing that Taylor Jenkins Reid did really well in this book, it's ending lots of chapters with some really good hook lines and some really good cliffhangers. So you sort of just have this feeling where you're like, okay, well, I need to know what's next. And I actually listened to this on audiobook before I bought this book. There's so many times when I'm just walking and I'm just like, or sometimes I forget that I'm walking and I audibly gasp because so many things that happen in this book are crazy. One time I was taking the bus and the final Harry scene, you know, the Harry scene came on and I was like, oh my god, I literally almost missed my stop because I was in shock. I was in awe. Yeah, if you ever want to listen to the book, the audiobook is pretty fire as well. Ow. Next favorite book is People We Meet on Vacation. Emily Henry only has 2 books out right now. She has a 3rd one coming soon in the next year. But you're either a People We Meet on Vacation girl or a beach read girl. And I'm a People We Meet on Vacation girl. Which is so funny because I thought that beach read would be more for me. But anyways. People we meet on vacation. This follows Alex and Poppy, who are complete opposites. They meet in college and they become friends very quickly, and through this friendship comes this tradition where they always go on vacation together. This keeps going until one summer something happens on one of their vacations and they stop talking. And in the present day, it has been 2 years after that incident. This is told through Poppy's point of view, and she decides to take some time off and reconnect with Alex and plan one more vacation with him in order to save their friendship. And this book goes back and forth between the present summer, where they're going on their vacation, and all of the other summers where they met and bonded and grew their relationship. I've never been one for friends to lovers, but this one really did it for me. It really did. If you've ever liked Love, Rosie or One Day, I feel like this book would be great for you. Or if you just love friends to lovers in general, this one's a pretty solid one. I think one of the big criticisms of the book is that it always alludes to like that big incident that they have on the vacation that makes them stop talking. Like we don't know what happens on the vacation until they tell us, like until we're actually in that vacation timeline. The big incident, it's kind of like a small thing, and some people think it's weird that they stop talking after it. I will agree, like that incident that they have isn't the most crazy, but at the end of the day, like I was reading the book for the romance. I wasn't reading the book to figure out what happened. Like I was reading the book to watch them grow together, to bond, to fall in love, and it was worth it. It was worth it. It was worthwhile. The love story is really solid, and I love the banter. Emily Henry writes some good banter. I read this twice this year, so yeah. And so here's another graphic novel recommendation for you. So this is the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman. This is the first thing I've ever read from Alice Oseman. She has a lot of other stuff that like a lot of people rave about. Heartstopper follows Nick and Charlie. So Nick is 1 year older than Charlie, and he is on the rugby team, and Charlie is more of like a band kid. They meet in class one day and they hit it off. The first volume follows them as they meet and grow their bond and start to develop feelings for each other. The second volume follows them as Nick starts to come out to his loved ones, and it also follows Nick and Charlie as they start to officially date and start to define their relationship. And then the third volume follows Nick and Charlie as they go to Paris. They go on a school trip to Paris with their friends, and we sort of get to learn more about the side characters of this book while we sort of deal with Nick and Charlie also figuring out how public they want their relationship to be. And now we're on the 4th one. Haven't read the 4th one, but the first 3 are very good. I feel like it's a really cute read. I feel like it's very heartwarming, and I think what's so great about it is it focuses on having like really healthy discussions around mental health, sexuality, eating disorders at some point, and relationships. Really love it. I really recommend it. It's a really quick read. It's a really easy read. It's a really feel-good read. Next, I read The Search, which is a graphic novel extension of the Avatar: The Last Airbender series. So this takes place after the series finale, like not immediately after. There's like another series that takes place before this, like chronologically. This follows Zuko, and he wants to know more about his mom, so he enlists the help of Azula and all of the Avatar gang to help search for his mom and figure out the truth about where she is. The interesting thing about this is it's a 3-part series. I think I read it right after Heartstopper, and I think the main difference in terms of the feeling towards the way that these books are structured is Heartstopper feels like a story that just keeps extending upon itself. Like at the end of the day, it's a complete story, and then has like a sequel, which also feels like a complete story. If you read this, I definitely recommend reading it all 3 at once, because the 3 parts feel more so like fragments of a story. Like they feel like pieces of a puzzle that were just split up. I really love Zuko. I love Azula, and I've always wanted to know what happened to Zuko's mom. I thought it was pretty fulfilling. If there's any criticism that I have, it's just that I wish that Azula had more redemption. Azula was batshit crazy in this book. Listen, I love an unhinged woman. I love a woman going through a psychological breakdown. I think they're always interesting to watch through media, but in this book, she just kept going through it, and it just never got resolved. It fulfilled everything that I needed to know regarding the mom, and I really loved the way that they sort of like derailed you. The graphic novels gave you all these random little hints that you're like, what does this have to do with the story? And then in the end, it all ties together pretty well. It really got me. And once again, read them all at once. Don't read them separately. The next book I have is The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse by Charlie Mackesy. It's basically a little boy. He then meets a mole. Him and the mole meet a fox. Then him, the mole, and the fox meet a horse. And they all end up having like small discussions about what it means to be alive, and then you get a lot of quotes and a lot of reminders about what it's like to be alive and to be ordinary and to be okay with the ordinary. It's an acquired taste, methinks. It's an acquired taste, methinks. It made me cry. It did. I described this book as feeling like I was getting like a nice pat on the head and someone telling me like, good job, keep going. Times are tough, but I believe in you. Yeah, that made me cry because clearly I didn't hear that enough in my life. As I've said before, I love a picture. I love a self-help quote. Made me emotional, but I love a book that makes me cry. I do. I love to cry. If I'm not crying, what am I doing? And now we're on to the last 5-star read of the year. This is The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. This book also made me cry. This is part of her series. The Kiss Quotient series follows these 3 boys from the same family, and then it follows all these boys and their respective love interests, and it's always dual perspective, and it's always very steamy. Anyways, The Heart Principle follows Anna, who is a violinist who's experiencing creative burnout. She also has been recently diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. On top of that, she's also dealing with some family troubles, and she has to help take care of her dad while he's undergoing a health crisis. This also then follows Kwan, who has recently survived cancer and trying to regain his confidence after going through all of his treatments. Kwan was always my favorite character in the first 2 books. He is so good. He is like a tough guy. He has all these tattoos. He rides a motorcycle, but he has a heart of gold and he has family values. And it's just like, damn, that's the one I want. That's the one I want. I love the series. I love it a lot. I love what it does for autism representation and helping sort of debunk any preconceived notions that you might have about autism. This book is way more dark and emotional compared to the other 2. I think that's what makes the story all the more better. Just seeing these 2 characters support each other and be with each other and love each other through all the things that they're going through. It's really solid. It's really solid and I really love it a lot. So yeah, those are all of my 5-ish star reads throughout the year. Let me know if I should do more book videos if you're interested. I know that BookTok is really taken off and I would love to join in on the fun. I will be also posting a book where I talk about every book that I read this year. So if you like this, feel free to subscribe and wait for that one to come out. Stay tuned for more book content, but of course I won't only ever do book content. Yeah, let me know any book recommendations that you have. Let me know if you also love these books. If you don't like these books, that's totally fine. I still love you, still respect you. See you next time.